The very first image Marry My Husband gives us is not a grand explosion of drama or a sweeping romantic overture. It is quieter than that. It is more devastating than that. We open on a window, just a plain hospital window, and beyond it, the indifferent outside world continues spinning as it always does. Ordinary people walk ordinary streets. A breeze stirs the trees. And pressed against that window, gazing outward with actress who brings Ji-won to life, does something extraordinary in these earliest seconds of the episode. She said, into this quiet devastation steps young Soo-min, smiling, bright-eyed, perfectly put together in the way that people who are performing warmth often are. She sits beside Ji-won's hospital bed with the energy of someone who has rehearsed their version of concern. She tells Ji-won not to give up. She tells her to stay strong. She holds her hand with the tenderness of a devoted companion. Watch Song Hyun's face carefully in these early scenes. She is brilliant in this role precisely because the performance operates on two levels simultaneously. On the surface, Soo-min is the picture of a caring best friend, supportive, present, loyal. But if you are watching with the benefit of dramatic irony, already knowing what we will discover about her, there are micro-expressions, tiny flickers of something that does not quite fit the narrative she is performing. A slight vacancy behind the warmth, a shallowness to her reassurance. She is not a monster with a neon sign above her head. She is something far more chilling, a monster who looks exactly like a friend. Ji-won, lying pale and exhausted in her hospital bed, tells Soo-min something remarkable in its quiet devastation. She says she believes her husband is cheating on her. Not screaming it, not crying it, just saying it, the way you say something that has solidified from suspicion into simple, terrible truth. She has lived with this knowledge, or near knowledge, for long enough that the rawness of it has worn down into something flat and resigned. This is perhaps the most heartbreaking detail of her current life. She is not just sick in a hospital. She is sick, alone, betrayed, and surrounded by people who are counting the days until she is gone. Soo-min's response to this confession is expertly calibrated to seem comforting while saying nothing of substance. She dismisses Ji-won's concern, tells her she is overthinking it, and this extended sequence is one of the most quietly enraging stretches of television you will encounter in the drama. There is no single villain speech, no mustache-twirling moment of obvious cruelty. Instead, the show does something smarter. It shows you how a life can be slowly, methodically dismantled through 1,000 small cruelties, none of which would constitute a crime, but all of which together constitute a kind of murder of the spirit. We see Ji-won's wedding. She is beautiful. Min-hwan looks presentable and harmless, that particular brand of ordinary-looking man who has never had his mediocrity challenged. In the background of this joyful ceremony, the camera catches Soo-min catching Ji-won's bouquet. It is played as a sweet, funny moment. The audience laughs, perhaps. Ji-won laughs. Everything looks like the beginning of a lovely story. And then life begins. Ji-won's mother-in-law wastes no time. At what should be a celebratory time, a newly married couple beginning their lives together, the older woman begins a campaign of psychological warfare so consistent and so casual that it barely registers as warfare at all. She berates Ji-won for not being able to conceive. She criticizes her cooking, her background, the fact that she grew up without a mother in the picture. She treats her son as a precious creature who must be shielded from all inconvenience, and she treats Ji-won as a domestic appliance that is not performing to manufacturer specifications. Lee E-kyung, playing Park Min-hwan, is extraordinary in his utter spinelessness. He does not stand up for his wife. He does not push back against his mother's cruelty. He simply absorbs his mother's worldview and reflects it back onto Ji-won as though it were perfectly reasonable. The most stomach-turning detail of the flashback sequence is that Park Min-hwan quits his job. He just stops working. He gives no particular reason, no crisis that precipice. This is the sequence that viewers remember. This is the scene that split the first episode of Marry My Husband open like a fault line and sent shockwaves through the K-drama community when the show premiered on New Year's Day 2024. It is the scene that transforms the drama from a quiet, melancholic story about a sick woman into something explosive, something alive, something that demands to be watched. Ji-won has been at the hospital. She has been told, again, about her limited timeline. The hospital administration tells her that her bills need to be paid. She calls Min-hwan. She calls him multiple times. He does not answer. She is sick, alone in a hospital corridor, her phone pressed to her ear, listening to it ring and ring into nothing. And because she has no other option, she goes home. What she finds at home will shatter whatever fragile illusions she was still carrying. Min-hwan and Soo-min are together. The woman who sat at Ji-won's hospital bedside hours ago, holding her hand and telling her to be strong, that woman is now in Ji-won's home, in Ji-won's husband's arms. The betrayal is total. It is double. It is not just a husband cheating. It is the particular, precise cruelty of a best friend choosing to be the one he cheats with. Every coffee they shared, every phone call in which Soo-min played the role of supportive companion. Every time she encouraged Ji-won to hold on, all of it recontextualized in an instant. Every kindness revealed as performance. Every shared secret now a weapon. But the show does not let it rest there. Because what Ji-won overhears is not merely an affair. It is something worse. Min-hwan and Soo-min are talking about the insurance money. They are discussing, casually, the cancer insurance policy Ji-won holds. They are waiting for her to die. Min-hwan expresses frustration that she is still alive, that she is clinging on longer than expected. And Soo-min, who was at the hospital that very day, holding Ji-won's hand, urgy. And then something extraordinary happens. Ji-won does not stay dead. Consciousness returns, but not to the hospital floor, not to the broken glass and the aftermath of murder. Ji-won opens her eyes and finds herself standing, as though a woman did not just die, as though the world did not just end. And standing directly in front of her, with an expression of alarm at her dazed state, is Park Min-hwan, 10 years younger, unlined by the consequences of the man he will become. The disorientation Ji-won experiences in this moment is brilliantly rendered. She does not understand what is happening. Her body is acting on impulse, on the residue of the trauma still fresh in her nervous system, and before her mind can catch up, she is hitting him, swinging at him with the fury of everything she just lived through, everything she endured over a decade of marriage, every insult from his mother, every unanswered phone call, every glass of water he never brought her, and most of all, his voice saying, "We'll make it look like an accident." Her colleagues have to physically restrain her, bewildered, as she comes back to herself in fragments. Something is wrong. Something is profoundly, inexplicably different. She runs out of the office building and into the street, and what she finds there stops her cold. A newspaper on a stand gives her the date. It is 2013. She is 30 years old again. 10 years of suffering, the grinding marriage, the mother-in-law's cruelty, the diagnosis, the betrayal, the death, none of it has happened yet. The scene of Ji-won standing in the middle of a 2013 street, rain beginning to fall, the sounds of a decade ago surrounding her, is one of the most quietly electric moments in the episode. The show does not. She is still reeling when he appears. Yoo Ji-hyuk, her colleague, her superior, the man she barely noticed in her previous life because she was too consumed by Min-hwan's orbit. He has followed her out of the building, concerned by her erratic behavior. He stands in the rain, offering her his jacket. Na Yeon-woo plays Ji-hyuk with a deliberate restraint that works beautifully in contrast to the emotional turbulence swirling around Ji-won. He is composed, attentive, quietly perceptive. He does not demand explanations she cannot give. He does not look at her with the pity that makes people feel small. He gives her his jacket. He gives her some cash to get home. Later, he will bring her groceries and act so simple, so quietly considerate, that for Ji-won, who has not been on the receiving end of genuine care in what feels like a lifetime, it registers as almost overwhelming. But here is the moment that shifts everything for Ji-won, the moment her disorientation converts into certainty. In the previous timeline, Yoo Ji-hyuk will go on to become the CEO of their company. He is the grandson of the company's founder. This is knowledge that no one in 2013 possesses, because the story of his rise to power is still years away from unfolding. But Ji-won knows it. She lived through it. And the fact that she knows this future truth, the fact that her memories of 2023 are accurate and specific and consistent, means that this is not a dream. This is not a hallucination brought on by medication or grief. Everything she remembers is real, which means the future she is trying to prevent is real, which means she has a genuine, extraordinary, almost incomprehensible second chance. She looks at Ji-hyuk, really looks at him, perhaps for the first time, with new eyes. In her Min-hwan never was. She sees that his consideration for her in this moment, this small, unremarked,